All right, does the penultimate episode of Silo Season 2 give us everything we're hoping for? Let's talk about Silo Season 2, Episode 9, The Safeguard. Hey everyone, it's David Stark from Watcher Pass. Today I'm here to talk to you about Silo Season 2, Episode 9, The Safeguard, which is coming to Apple TV Plus on January 10th, 2025. This is the penultimate episode, the episode before the big Silo 2 season finale. This should set up everything we're hoping for in Season 2. Does it? My hot take is I think you should watch it. I was kind of between a watch it and a watch later. This episode has a lot of really great aspects. I really like the ending. I like how it's starting to set up some interesting storylines, and also it's a very long episode. We get a lot of intersecting stories between both the original Silo and Silo 17. But I also didn't love how, how Silo 17 played out and some of the, I guess, power plays that are occurring. So I think it's a weaker episode still, but it had a really great ending. And look, I still love this series. I still love this world. So I'm excited to see how they end this season. I'm just worried that it is not going to be as fulfilling an ending as the first season was. So all that being said, I'm going to tell you a little about the episode, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into a recap. So as you can imagine, there'll be spoilers in the recap section. If you don't know what happens in this episode, I would turn it off when I get to the recap. Before that, though, I'll keep it vague. I'll keep it spoiler free. Let you know when I get to those spoilers. So, Silo Season 2, Episode 9 continues right where the last episode ended off. We had some discontent brewing down in the original Silo because the mechanical folks got betrayed. They're not sure what to do next. They're running out of supplies. They're starting to get a little bit desperate. And Walker became a freaking rat. And on Silo 17, Jules finally saved Silo 17, turned on the pump, saved everyone there. But in the process, she got attacked by some mysterious person that was kind of like Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. So this episode continues both of those storylines and gives us some answers and who these people are, but kind of leaves us with some questions as well. So things I liked about this episode. The first, I still love the world. I like the world. This episode expands it a little more, gives us a bigger look into Silo 17. Silo 17 has been fairly absent in the last few episodes. This one, we have a good chunk of it. We get a lot more of Silo 17. I don't love all of it, but hey, they expand it there. And over on the original Silo side, we get a look in some areas that we have only briefly seen, even in the original series. And we get an expansion of what people know and how this world is connected. Second thing I loved, same as last episode. I like Mr. Kyle's emergence. I think he's fun. I think his character is interesting. I like how he has gone from cocky to more grounded and is really starting to stretch the bounds of what he can do. It feels like he's going to be an important character in the next episode and maybe in, a potential Silo season 3. I think they announced a Silo season 3, so whenever that happens, I assume Mr. Kyle will have a main role, and I really like him. And the third thing I loved the length. It is a hour-long episode. I mean, we're setting up for the season finale. There were a lot of storylines here. This cut into pretty much all of them. I'm glad they touched on all those storylines, and we got plenty of time in both silos. And the last thing I liked the ending. I thought it was an interesting twist. I'm curious to see where they go from it, but I really liked how, kind of pulled together some of the things that we've heard, some of the concepts that we've had, and it made me really excited for the finale. So all that being said, things I didn't love as much. I didn't love the Silo 17 explanation part. I'll get into that in the recap. There were some things that I was just like, I know how that would work, but it's fine. It does at least tie together some of the things that have happened and gives us some emotional moments in Silo 17. And the second thing I didn't love as much, I'll call it some of the power plays. There were some, shifting power here that I don't know, nothing about the Silo series is realistic, but felt like someone would have noticed. It felt like someone would have seen something. So again, I'll go into that in the recap. So all that being said, Silo Season 2, Episode 9, The Safeguard comes to Apple TV Plus on January 10th, 2025. Like I said, I think you should watch it. It's kind of between a watch it and a watch later. I think overall, look, I've liked this season. The last two episodes have been a little bit weaker, I think, as the story has become a little bit more chaotic. But I do still enjoy this world. I'm interested to see where it goes. I don't know if we'll get the answers that we're hoping for in the next episode, but I guess we'll have to wait a week to find out. But I do think you should watch this series, and fingers crossed for a very good finale. So if you do, check it out. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. I'm going to really quickly go into a recap right now. So if you don't know what happens in this episode, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. So like all the other episodes, Silo season 2 episode 9 goes between Silo 17 and the original Silo back and forth throughout. That has been kind of what has happened throughout this. This time we end this episode on the original Silo, so I will do that second. I will start with Silo 17. So over in beloved Silo 17, we find out that there are a bunch of kids, like lost boys from Peter Pan, essentially. They've been living in the silo, I guess, in secret. It seems like there are three main kids. There's Audrey and her like boyfriend, maybe husband Rick, and then this one named Eater, who we don't know. And then Rick and Audrey have two kids, a like toddler probably, I think. Maybe not a toddler. No, he's a little bit older. A young kid and then a baby. So that is this like strange family that we have seen. They are the ones who attacked Jules. They're the ones who sabotage some of her efforts. We see how like they've been in here and sneaking around during this time. Like Audrey cut the rope that Jules was going to try to swing over into the vault that one time when it just snapped. But then Rick, seeing that she was like drowning through her, a flotation device, so she was able to grab onto it. It seems like they're the ones who attacked Solo. They call him the Killer when he was out there trying to support Jules during the fight. That's why the rope snapped. That's why the air tube got cut off. All of that was because of these, kids who are fighting here. And they are eventually the ones that attacked Jules and, said they were going to kill her. So we find out a little bit more about them. They were apparently all kids during the revolution, the big revolution we saw at the very beginning of season 2. Their parents eventually died when they were trying to get into the vault to get some more food. And so they have been kind of like living in secret, I guess. But I'm like, how did Solo not know this? I mean, did they just kind of like completely live away from him? Did they never go in front of the vault? Did Solo never like look out and see? Does he never like check any cameras? I guess maybe the cameras aren't working, but it feels very strange that they would be able to set up this entire world, have food, have supplies without Solo even knowing. I guess he never really went out of the vault, but it is strange that when he left the vault, he didn't even know that these kids were there, which does feel weird. Do you think he would have heard a baby cry, heard them make some noise, something? Anyways, these kids called Solo the Killer, and we find out why a little bit later, but eventually we find out why a little bit later. But before that, they make Jules try to break into the vault. They need the supplies in the vault. They make her try to break in, and she's like, "How am I supposed to find that out?" And they're like, "Well, you'll figure it out, or your friend dies." Jules wants to break into the vault. Jules wants to save Solo so she can get her suit, so she can go back to her silo. So she goes and takes Eater with her. Eater says that she'll go and help, and so they try to figure out the code. And she's like looking through all of Solo's stuff. She finds some hints here and there, but eventually we find out that the parents of Audrey and Rick did break into the vault. They tried a bunch of combinations over a long time. They mapped out all the numbers, and eventually they did break into the vault, and that is when Solo killed them. And she's like, "Oh, where would these numbers be?" And Reader's like, "I don't know, they wrote them all down." And you're like, "Of course they did. That was that chalkboard full of numbers that I knew, and I assume everyone else knew, were vault codes." When Jules was like, "Oh, we don't need these. We'll just erase this, and I'll draw my really crappy picture for an air pump." Well, that was apparently the board that they used to figure out what the numbers were. And so after this, Jules looks at it and she's like, "Oh, why did I erase this to draw this horrible picture?" And so she like, "But I can figure it out." So she starts like calculating what their pattern was and tries to figure out what the code is. And I don't really know how she did. I don't remember if they circled it. It's really tough to see. Maybe they circled what the number is. And so she like tries to get in the vicinity of it. But as she's calculating all of this, Eater is just sitting there asking her a bunch of questions about like the real world. And I'm like, "Eater, shut up. Like, let her calculate." Eventually, she comes up with 6 different numbers, which is a pretty good, universe of numbers, right? Like 6 tries. If they don't do the code right 3 times, they get locked out of the vault for 24 hours. So she could get it within 2 days, but they have Solo. They're going to kill Solo if she doesn't get in very quickly. So she tries 2, doesn't get in, is going to try the third, but then she's like, "I can't risk it. If I get locked out, then I'm not going to be able to get in the vault and they'll kill me." So she and Eater go to Rick, convince him to let her go talk to Solo. And while she's talking to Solo, she drops on him some of the knowledge that she figured out while she was looking through his stuff and trying to figure out this vault code. When Solo originally said that he was Russell's shadow, he was IT's shadow, she realized that wasn't who he was. Russell was actually his father. Solo is Russell's son, Jimmy. So Audrey then sees her talking to Solo, goes to kill him because she threatened, like, if you don't get in when my baby cries next, I'm gonna kill you. And I'm like, come on, like, give her a little bit of time. She'll get in eventually. Audrey seems very hot-headed. I did not love her character. She seems to be the leader here, but she seems to rule with kind of an iron fist. And she is getting ready to kill Solo, but Jules is like, no, stop. And she keeps talking to Solo. Apparently, Solo killed Audrey and Rick's parents, and we find out what happened. Eventually, the parents got into the vault. They were hungry. They were trying to get supplies for their kids, and they snuck up on Solo. He was sleeping. He was also just a kid, and they shot him. And they shot him in like the stomach, I guess. Then they went to go get the food. Solo somehow survived, ended up breaking off the inner handle to the vault that they were in, whatever storage vault they were in, closed the vault, sealed it, and they eventually ran out of air and died. So, not good. But again, Solo was a kid. He was scared. He got shot. He didn't know what to do. His dad told him to not let anyone in the vault. And so he felt like he failed and needed to solve that. So he killed the parents after they shot him. I guess we're supposed to say that's okay. Now, we also find out that Jimmy was probably a little bit scarred when he was young because during the rebellion, the sheriff had his dad told him to open the vault, and Jimmy like is no, I can't. My dad told me not to. And then because Jimmy didn't open the vault, the sheriff shot his dad in the face in a pretty brash move. And so this probably caused Jimmy a little bit of trauma. Didn't have anyone to talk to about because he's stuck in the vault by himself. So this is probably what kind of started fracturing his memory, caused him to forget who he actually was, or maybe like be ashamed of that person. So try not to be that person, try to be his dad. And that is why Jimmy started calling himself head of IT. That's why he gets a little bit scattered occasionally. But Jules is very sympathetic, and she's like, "You were just a kid. Like, why? You did what your dad wanted." And he's like, "I couldn't do it. I couldn't, protect the vault." And she's like, "He wanted you to stay in there so that you would survive." Eventually, Solo then opens the vault and has like a complete 180 on his character. Before he's like, no one can ever get in the vault. And now he's like, hey, look at all these people. Let's all come in. And so he opens the vault for everyone. They all go in. He shows them all of the like artifacts in the vault. It's that like knowledge space that Mr. Kyle got access to with books and science equipment and experiments and things like that. And all the people are in there. They're all like messing around with stuff. And he's like, I know what you need. Let's have some ice cream. So he has ice cream. Like it's a pretty sweet, decked out place. I don't know how old that ice cream is. It's probably very, very old, but hopefully it keeps really well. They all have ice cream. He lets them play music, and while the kids are all having fun, Solo goes and gives Jules her suit. And she's like, "You lied to me. I know there was another suit." When she was exploring through some of Solo's stuff, she found a backpack that had a suit in it. We didn't know what it was until now, but she found a backpack that had a suit. And so I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. The head of IT gets a suit as well, just in case they need it. Like, I'm sorry I lied to you." He's like, "But if you found the suit, why didn't you just leave?" And Jules doesn't say anything. Solo realizes it. It's because they're friends, and she cares about him. And so he touches her shoulder, and it's a happy, go feel good moment. And that is Silo 17. Yay! They're all but one big happy family, and they're not going to drown because the water is no longer being pumped in. So there we go. Now, over in the original Silo, we find out from Bernard that there are 51 silos. Why 51? Who knows? And all the heads of IT and their shadows know about the other silos. Um, so Miss, Mr. Kyle is still working on Bernard's requirement to decode this letter from Salvador Quinn. So he goes and does that as well. Now, over in the lower areas, Patrick Kennedy starts to sow some discontent. He is getting looked at by Billings' wife, and he basically says what I don't know. I thought last season, and I think what a lot of people probably thought, that whole display window is a lie. It's like a filter essentially to filter out the beautiful outside world and turn it into a wasteland. And he thinks that that's a lie. And this is the kind of discontent that is going to breed a rebellion in the silo. So that was interesting. It's interesting that Patrick Kennedy is going there, and also that he's starting to let other people know, other people that have seen artifacts, seen the old world. He thinks the old world is actually out there. Now, Bernard is trying to consolidate some control, trying to consolidate some power here. He tells the raiders that the rebels were trying, that the whole raid, when the rebels went up to try to get some medical supplies, that they were trying to get gunpowder to blow open the silo doors. And he says that this was put in place by Paul Billings. So he takes away Paul Billings' deputy Ness and also tells all the other deputies that they have to go and convert the cafeteria to a jail. So it seems like he is essentially getting ready for war, trying to, I guess, consolidate his troops and make like a martial law kind of thing. We'll see how this works. We'll see how Bernard handles this, but that is what's going on up above. Now, meanwhile, Knox is trying to figure out who the rat is. They know they had a rat because their supply raid was completely sniffed out, and so he's trying to figure out who it is. He goes to Walker and thinks she's being a little weird. He says they're trying to come up with a plan to free McLean, and after this, Bernard instantly messages her. He's like apparently obsessed with her. Messages her and says like, "We need to know the plan," and she's like, "I don't know the plan. Like I can't go anywhere to talk to people." He's like, "Figure out the plan." And also, I've got your, wife, person, McLean. If you leave, if you turn off your camera, she's dead. And so Walker's like, okay, what do you want me to do? Basically, like, she can't do any research. She's just stuck here. But apparently, Bernard wants to figure out what this is. Now, Knox apparently does some more thinking and eventually thinks he figures out who betrayed them. So he goes back to Walker, and I think this is a coded message. We don't really understand completely, but I think he's using a coded message to Walker because he's somehow figures out she's on camera, somehow figures out that she's the rat, so there must be a good reason. And so he goes up to her and says, I think I know who the traitor is. I think it's Teddy's mom. And he thinks that she's a traitor because she's worried that her son Teddy will be killed. But it does seem like it's in code, right? He says like I wouldn't, begrudge her because of her feelings for her son or something like that. Like you can kind of tell that he is trying to tell Walker that he knows that she's the rat. But then he says, "We're in a jam, Walk, and they need to change the game." And he tells Walker, the rest of the gunpowder that we took from supply, we're going to use it. So I think he's setting a trap here. I think he's trying to like figure out if Walker is the actual rat because maybe they're going to raid the gunpowder or something. I think he's trying to like suss out what's happening and putting a plan into motion, probably for the finale. Now, meanwhile, Billings is summoned to the barricade, and when he gets up there, Sims is there. And Sims is like, I need to see the relic. And Billings hands him the page. And, basically Sims is like, you wanted me all the way down here to hand me this? And he's like, no, I wanted to see your wife. And I'm like, dang, Billings, like, that's a little bit of shade right here. But no, he wanted to see Billings' wife because Billings' wife saved Shirley and Knox when they were going to be killed by the mob. And so he thinks that she might be someone who cares more about the silo than all the little games and political machinations and things like that. And so he thinks that she might be someone who cares more about the silo than everything else. And he's trying to find other people that do that because he wants to save the silo. To Billings, the silo is number one, super, super most important. Love the heart. Number one in his heart. So he's just trying to find other like-minded people. Now, Sims takes this artifact, goes up and talks to his wife. And I don't know. I guess Sims has never seen something like this because he seems surprised by this. I feel like Sims would have seen something like this before. I mean, he was a pretty high up person in Bernard's government. Like you'd think that he would have known some stuff about this. But Sim's wife says like, "Hey, look, we need to pick a side," and she wants to side with the mechanical, the down deepers, whatever. She thinks that they might win, and if they do win, they'll need someone to run the silo, and that could be Sims. And Sim's like, "No, I can't do it. They hate me. They don't like me at all." And she's like, "Well, I'll do it." And he's like, okay, great. And there is something I might be able to do for you. Bernard has some sort of magic key that lights up whenever he's needed. It says 18 on it. And so whenever it lights up, he goes into the head of the IT department and something happens. And so I think Sims is going to get that key to try to figure out what's going on. What could be in that special area? What could be in that special room that only the head of IT has access to? We kind of get a sense a little bit later on. Now, the big storyline here is Mr. Kyle heading down to the down deep. He starts decoding Salvador Quinn's message. He gets some information. And he finds some information about a tunnel. So Mr. Kyle goes down to the barricade, goes through, gets captured by Mechanical, and says like, and they're about to like kill him. He's like, wait, I knew Juliette Nichols. Her boyfriend's name was George. This causes Shirley to come back up. And she's like, you didn't know Juliette. How did you know her? And he's like, well, we talked a little bit, blah, 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 blah. But eventually he says that he'll tell Shirley what happened to Juliette if she helps him find what he needs. And they go into the very deep parts of the silo, the like driller sections that Juliette and George used to hang out in, and that is where Mr. Kyle thinks that this tunnel that you read about is. So they go down there. She's like, I think there's a tunnel down there. And she's like, how could there be a tunnel? It's filled with water. And he's like, I don't think it's that deep. I don't know why he doesn't think it's that deep, but he doesn't think it's that deep. So she's like, are you willing to stake your life on it? And he's like, sure, why not? And so they throw a rope down there. He climbs down, gets to the bottom of the rope, and then drops. And I'm like, the there's like 5 feet that the rope doesn't touch. They should have added an extra piece of the rope so it goes all the way down to the water. What happens if Mr. Kyle, what happens if it's deep water? He's going to drown down there. They should have at least given him a little bit of rope. I mean, oh, Mr. Kyle's not the most athletic person. Maybe he can't climb back up, but they should have at least given him a chance. Now, when he drops down, the water's not that deep. It's like, thigh deep, waist deep, essentially. And he looks around in there and sees a tunnel. It's like a sewer, essentially. So Mr. Kyle goes up to it. And when he gets there, some lights light up. There's some sort of like futuristic kind of door, like a circular door. And when he gets there, he hears a voice and it says, Lucas Kyle, why are you here? And he said, I was given instructions by Salvador Quinn. And the voice says, before you, only 3 people have reached the door. Salvador Quinn, Mary Meadows, and George Wilkins. The voice says, I spoke with Salvador Quinn and Mary Meadows. I didn't get a chance to speak with George Wilkins. But here's what I'll tell you. If you speak to anyone about this conversation or what you've seen down here, we will have no choice but to initiate the safeguard. And they're like, do you know what the safeguard is? And Mr. Kyle's like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, you could have told us. I think I know what the safeguard is, but I don't know. But anyways, that is the end. That is the end of this episode. It seems like Mr. Kyle has found the next level, the boss level of the silo. He's figured out some secrets that not even Bernard knows about, and hopefully we'll find out what those are next episode. But that is Silo Season 2, Episode 9. So what do you think is going to happen next? Well, over in the originals, over in Silo 17, I mean, Juliette now has her suit, so I think she's probably going to go back to the original Silo. But I don't know. She should take advantage of all this knowledge. There's so much knowledge in here. She has access to it all. She's got supplies. She's got solo. She's got like a cute little family. Maybe she can live here and be happy. I think she's going to go back to the original silo, but I feel like she should take advantage of some of the information here. I think she's going to scour this section to find out some more information about like the silo and the structures and things like that, get a better sense of where she is, and then probably head back to the original silo, probably while it's tearing itself apart because of what's happening now. Over on the original silo, it does feel like there is a revolution coming. It feels like Knox has some sort of plan in place, some sort of trap that he's going to use to maybe like capture the head of the Raiders, capture, some security folks, maybe try to make a bargain here. It sounds like when he was talking about the gunpowder, he's trying to push their hand and have them go and try to like take out the gunpowder before he uses it to blow the silo. It feels like Billings is playing sides too. Sims might be getting involved in this. Maybe they're going to have a coordinated attack somehow. I guess we'll find out how. And Lucas Kyle feels like he is going to go into like an inner sanctum, essentially. I don't know if this tunnel connects all the silos. Maybe this tunnel will connect him to like some sort of like headquarters silo. I don't know. But it feels like he is going to get some more information. Maybe, maybe become a key person. Maybe meet the founders, these mythical founders we hear about, and hopefully not initiate the safeguard, which might be an extinction level event. It could also just be that they destroy all the history, erase everyone's minds, like what they did with Salvador Quinn. Maybe that's, what Salvador Quinn figured out. Maybe he didn't come up with this idea. Maybe that is what the founders do occasionally to stop constant rebellions. But I guess we'll find out. That is Silo Season 2, Episode 9, The Safeguard. Comes Apple TV Plus on January 10th, 2025. I think you should probably check it out. I didn't love this episode as much as the other ones, but I am excited to see how this season ends. So if you do watch it, let me know what you think. Let me know what you like and didn't like. I'd love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.